Hey, what's up guys, Gypsy, and we are finally back with some more ITL. Today I'm going to be going over my draft recap for ITL Season 8 and giving you guys a brief rundown of my thoughts on the season, what it's going to involve, and the new coaches to the league. So yeah, very excited to be bringing you guys this one. ITL, one of my favourite leagues that I've ever played in, to be honest. It's run by Aki VGC, for those of you who may not know. Really good friend of mine and fantastic commissioner. So yeah, very, very pumped to be bringing you guys this one. I've drafted a very fun team that I think can do very well for us. So, brief history for the ITL. I've played in it for the past 3 seasons. So since season 5, won season 5 and 6. I lost in semis of last season, season 7. Unfortunately, got crit to lose the game there, but it does happen. It was a very fun season, and last season I drafted a very fast kind of offensive team centered around Tapu Koko and Hawlucha. And yeah, it was a lot of fun to use. I used stuff like Gliscor on that team, which I really enjoyed. Hadn't used that thing in a while. Seismitoad was a new mon that I was trying out on there. Really did enjoy it. But honestly, stuff like Mega Scissor was a lot of fun to use. Tapu Koko was a real beast to use. Didn't really use Hawlucha that much. I think I brought it to a couple of games. Swept someone with lead Venomoth. That was pretty fun. But yeah, it was a pretty fun season, and I do find that in the ITL, there is a lot of room for fun creativity when it comes to building, and there's a lot of competition. Last season, of course, we did have Matty Brolick, who had an unreal season. He went like undefeated in the regular season, and then he made it to finals where he unfortunately did lose, but he had a heck of a run. Matty won't be returning this season, but he's moved away from Mons, but he is still in the server chilling, and we've got a ton of new competitors we've got a few new competitors to the league, and I'll be covering that after I give you guys my draft recap, kind of giving you guys my thoughts on who I think is going to really do well in this season. So we're going to pause it here and jump right into the draft. Alright guys, so we are here with the first pick of my ITL draft, and as you can see, it was Magearna. Now Magearna is a mon that I've never had a chance to use yet. I think everyone understands Magearna is probably the best mon in the format. In most leagues don't really allow it, but you're seeing it pop up more and more. Some leagues allowing stuff like Aegislash, which I've used recently, and Aegislash is a pretty good mon. I think it's definitely one of the better mons in the league. I don't think it's broken though. I think Celestial is still better than Ag. I strongly believe that, but Ag is still really cool. But Magearna is a steel type that I haven't got a chance to use yet, and this thing is incredible. For kind of reference, I was number 3 in the draft, and Nova was at number 1 because he won the previous season. He'd used Magearna, so he wasn't going to pick it again. He opted to instead pick a mon that we did allow this season called Ashgren, and so we allowed Ashgren Ninja, which should be pretty interesting, and he picked that one up. Sebi was at number 2, and he ended up picking up Celesteela, and that left Magearna to me at number 3, which I was really looking forward to using. If I didn't get Magearna, realistically I was going to get Selly, because Selly is probably my favourite mon in the format, and I've used it to a lot of success in the past, and I think it's just incredibly fun and versatile to use. But the fact that Magearna fell to me, I was very excited. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to use this thing. You guys know Magearna, it's incredible. I think I can get pretty creative with this thing, especially based on the team that I have drafted. I think I've supported it pretty nicely, but in kind of subtle ways, in not the most obvious ways as you'd expect. But yeah, very excited to use Magearna. It cannot use Z moves, but that's totally fine, because with Z moves, Magearna is ridiculous. We had Magearna allowed in ITL a couple of seasons ago with Z moves, and it's just a nightmare to prep for. I think I had to bring Max Spadef Yachi Nidoqueen to check against the best Magearna set that my opponent could bring versus me, and he did bring it. So yeah, it's a real nightmare to prep for with Z, but even without Z, it's just absurd. I'm really looking forward to using this thing. For those of you guys who may not know what Magearna is, Steel and Fairy typing is the best defensive typing in the game. Potentially you could argue that Aegislash's Steel Ghost typing is better, though Steel Fairy has some pretty big advantages over it in some areas. Offensively, it's pretty good. Like, Steel Fairy is pretty good, but it's the coverage moves that Magearna gets that really make it such an offensive behemoth. in conjunction with its ability Soul Heart, giving it a special attack raise on any mon that dies whilst Magearna's in, so indirectly or directly. So yeah, incredible mon. It has speed control on both ends of the spectrum with access to Shift Gear as well as access to Trick Room, and it certainly has the bulk to set up Trick Room if I do need to do that. But yeah, Magearna, it's going to be a lot of fun to use. I'm very, very fortunate to have got it. I don't think realistically I'm ever going to get a chance to use it again, so it's highly unlikely that Magearna's even allowed in a league in the first place, let alone that I'll be high enough to grab it. So very excited to use Magearna. But that is not where the excitement ends. The next pick is a mon that I've wanted to use for a long time now, but honestly I just never, like when it gets to me in the draft, I never think of grabbing it because there's always something sort of more, I guess, that I kind of rate higher, that I can base my team around. But this is a mon that I've wanted to use it for a while. I've just never really committed to it. But it was here round 2, and I decided to get Torn T. Torn T is going to be a ton of fun to use. This mon can be extremely versatile. I've seen a lot of people get really creative with bulky sets on Torn, with offensive sets with setup variants like bulk up. It can be really interesting. Support sets, really fantastic. Getting defog now is a real blessing for this thing. Being able to actually come in and defog on spikers, T-spikers, going to be a lot of fun to use. Regen, obviously, crazy, such a good ability. Really turns the thing into an incredible pivot. And hits a speed tier that's really useful for my team. So Torn is going to be a ton of fun. This is one of my Z move users, so I will be able to use Torn to its fullest. I think Torn, like overall, in my opinion, Torn was the best choice for my team. Yeah, that's going to be a bit controversial as we continue, but getting the most out of Torn and not having to rely on shaky accuracy moves in a pinch could be really clutch. So that is my second pick, Torn. I think it does synergize quite nicely with Magearna, giving it that ground type immunity. Fire types, unless they're physical, can't really hurt Torn. Like special variants get checked by Assault Vest Torn, and I'm going to have other answers for fire types. So we're kind of already patching up Magearna's 2 weaknesses pretty nicely. And my third pick was a mon that I was kind of surprised this thing was still around in round 3. It's typically a mon that it's a mon that used to go in the first round. You're seeing it go at least round 2 now. But to last till round 3 is pretty crazy, and that is Kyurem Black for my third pick. And this is why I mentioned that Torn was a bit of a controversial Z move pick. We did have a budget of 25, I think it was 25 or 24 Z points, and if I'd chosen Kyurem, I wouldn't have been able to choose my other Z mon, which I coupled with Torn. So the reason why Kyurem Black is obviously such an amazing Z move user is because of Freeze Shock. It's just pretty much a one-time nuke. It kills anything that doesn't 4 times resist ice, essentially, or isn't like Scizor, or like a really fat water. So yeah, incredible mon. But even without Z moves, this thing can be really nice. Versatile bulk, crazy offensive stats, a speed tier that certainly allows for Scarf sets to be viable. I think in the draft format, Kyurem Black doesn't need to rely on Z moves anywhere near as much as it does in standard play. This thing can be such a menace with Life Orb, with berries, with resist berries, with specs, with band. It's just got so many options. Life Orb is a fantastic abuser of Life Orb, so it's not the same situation in standard where you kind of need either a Life Orb or a Z move to break through Kyurem's checks, or just to open up holes for the rest of your team. You can really tailor Kyurem to be an offensive or a defensive win con in a lot of games without the use of Z moves. So yeah, very excited to use this thing. I used this back in, I think it was CPC, like season 3 or something like that, back in like Gen 6, so it's been a long time since I've used Kyurem, and I've certainly grown a lot as a player and a builder since then, so I'm very excited to be bringing this to ITL Season 8. And the next mon that I got, I wanted to draft a really fun team again this season, but a team that I felt was really solid and could synergize nicely around Magearna. And the fourth mon that I chose to pick up was Reuniclus. Again, Reuniclus was a mon that I had on a team with Kyurem Black back years ago in CPC. And Reuniclus, I haven't used it since then, but this thing was a monster back then, and it's going to be a lot of fun to use now. I love my bulky psychics, and Reuniclus fills that role perfectly. I think it's probably, I'd say after Mew, Reuniclus is the best psychic in the format, hands down. I think Necrozma's pretty cool. Gothitelle, you can argue, is a really good mon, but in terms of what I want in a bulky psychic, Reuniclus comes only second after Mew. I think Reuniclus is amazing. Trick Room support for Mage, win cons in Magic Guard variants, access to Double Dance, access to Trick Room. It can do a huge amount. It's got a really solid support move pool, so obviously its bulk is insane. Really high HP and solid defenses on both sides. So yeah, really interesting mon. It has 2 really good abilities. Overcoat is a bit meh, but if I face like a sleep power, like a spore user, it could potentially come. But Magearna and Regen, obviously the 2 kind of crucial abilities of this mon. Really useful. They both have their uses in different situations, so very excited to use Reuni again. And each of the mons that I've drafted thus far has really solid natural bulk whilst having a strong offensive presence. So it's kind of a theme that you're going to see followed through for the rest of the team. So next up we have Azumarill. We got Double Fairy, nice Double Fairy, Azu and Magearna. Azumarill was a mon that I wanted to use again for a while. I've used it recently in a draft tour that I'm playing at the moment, and I am enjoying using it again. I haven't used Azumarill since like CFA Season 3, I think, or something like that, which was another Gen 6 league. So again, it's a mon that I haven't used all of Gen 7. I wanted to mix it up and use kind of different stuff that I use typically in Gen 7. So yeah, Azumarill's a lot of fun. You guys know what it does, huge power. It just breaks through teams, opens up pathways for my other offensive Wincons, or alternatively it can sweep once a few of my offensive Wincons have broken down a team for something like Belly Drum or even banned Azu to just come in and clean up. So defensively it's really nice. It takes like physical and special hits better than a defensive Clef does, for instance. It's obviously you're losing a ton of offensive, you're losing all kind of offensive presence if you run a defensive set, but yeah, Azu can certainly be run defensively and can really appreciates the natural bulk that the rest of my team provides. Isn't forced, isn't sort of pigeonholed into a defensive set in a lot of games. It can flourish as an offensive mon, and that's something that I really wanted to kind of position Azumarill to do. So it's going to be a lot of fun to use. Whether I keep it or not, still deciding. There are a few things that I'm thinking about, but at the moment Azu is looking like a lot of fun to use. And the next one is actually going to be Whimsicott. So triple fairy, fairy spam. But the reason I did draft Whimsicott was because it will allow me to make this my second Zmon with Tornadus. It will use up all my Z points. I think I may have had one Z point left or something like that. But Z Whimsicott in conjunction with Magearna and Kyurem Black and Azumarill is going to be a ton of fun. This thing is going to be able to support my offense really nicely. It provides defog support as well as a speed tier that's really appreciated. Outspeeding those base 110s and 115s as well. Whimsicott's at a pretty weird speed tier. It's like it's very annoying to play against because a lot of teams, their fastest mons are going to be 110s, maybe 115s if they've gone that high. 130s and like the 150s are pretty uncommon. You're going to see those on a couple of teams, but for the most part, a lot of teams have speed tiers capped off at about 110 or 115, so having that 116 is pretty useful. Another momentum grabber to couple with my Torn, and a mon that can, like I said, really aid my offensive Wincons in this game, providing Z memento support, defog, screens. It can just do a ton. Offensive Whimsicott as well was a mon that I used in I think I used Whimsicott in my first NPL season back in season 5. Those of you guys who watched that, I used Infiltrator like Life or Whimsicott back then, and it really put in the work. So yeah, it's going to be fun to use this thing again, and I'm going to pause it here and we're going to get onto the second half of my draft. Alrighty, so we are back with the second half, and next I decided to pick up Magneton. I wanted to couple Magearna with a secondary steal, and Magneton fulfills a pretty vital role in the team, allowing me to trap steals, giving me a decently bulky with a Violite. Like Magneton can do some pretty nice work at checking certain rock types, steel types, with access to stuff like Magnet Rise. A very cheap mon, I think it was like 6 points or something compared to Magnezone, which I was looking at initially, but it did get taken. Though Magneton being less than half the price of Magnezone allowed me to free up some extra points for the rest of my team and allowed me to pick up 12 mons as opposed to 11, which could be really useful during the season. So not a whole lot to say on Magneton, but its speed tier over Magnezone allows it to function as a Scarfer that can outspeed base 115s, which is really important, as that is something that Zone can't really achieve, unfortunately. So yeah, Magneton should be a lot of fun to use. Haven't used it before, so yeah, I'm thinking it'll put in the work. and can trap steals for my mons that don't necessarily want to run steal coverage to beat steals, or don't appreciate steals sticking around the match. The next one I got is Piloswine. Piloswine, very solid rocker. I've used Piloswine a ton, and Piloswine plus the next one I grab, which is actually Qwilfish. Both Piloswine and Qwilfish here form a pretty solid, very cheap defensive core. They both provide me with hazards, almost every form of hazard outside of sticky webs, so yeah, they really do appreciate that, and they cover their weaknesses quite nicely. Piloswine covering Qwilfish's electric weakness, Qwilfish covering Piloswine's water and fighting weakness. They both can be pretty niche defensive picks in a game, and they both have, again, a really nice offensive presence. Qwilfish, like, it looks weak, but this thing in rain is no joke. This thing can function as a pretty solid offensive win con. And yeah, not a ton to say on these guys. They are obviously cheaper picks. They're pretty underwhelming compared to my first like 4 picks, but they certainly can pull their own in many games. And Qwilfish is a bit of an ITL staple. It's a mon that I had on a couple of my ITL drafts so far, and yeah, it really put in the work for me. So I'm pretty keen to use it. And last season I did allude to the fact that I really enjoyed using Gliscor, and obviously Gliscor was a bit too much. I think it was a bit expensive at this stage in the draft, so I ended up going with his little brother Gligar, which is a mon that I'm really excited to use. Gligar is phenomenally bulky. It's a lot more bulkier than Gliscor when it does have a Violite, and it has immunity as opposed to Poison Heal, so whilst I won't be able to get that nice passive recovery, I won't be able to be toxic, which is huge, because that means the only status affliction Gligar can really be affected by is freeze or burn. So that's going to be really useful. Again, another U-turn for the team, another rocker, another means of gaining momentum. And Baton Pass is allowed. You can't pass speed with other stats, I think, or maybe you can't even pass speed in general, but you can pass like attack, defense, and special attack. That's all good. So Baton Pass sets are certainly not out of the question with this Gligar into my offensive win condition, so that's going to be really useful. And yeah, not a bad offensive presence either. Like 75 attack isn't awful, and the fact that this has stuff like Taunt can function as a really nice stall breaker as well. So really looking forward to using Gligar. I think it's going to be a solid mon on the team. Immunity is pretty much his best ability. Sandvalve, very niche, but could potentially come, and you're going to see why as we continue. But the next one I decided to grab was a 1-point Giotto. I think Giotto was 1 point, but Giotto gives me a fighting type that I did use back in a league that died recently, or like earlier on in the year, and it's very bulky and very strong. With with a Violite, with Life Orb, it can function really nicely. Guts, Sheer Force, Iron Fist, all really nice abilities. Like each of these abilities are really solid. They've all got their own merits in certain matchups, and Giotto's move pool, like, it's not bad at all. He gets knockoff, Mach Punch, Drain Punch, Elemental Punches, Bulk Up, and with certain defensive investment, like Spadef, for instance, with a careful nature, it can function pretty nicely as a bulk up win condition. Offensive, like max attack, is pretty decent too, and yeah, it's just a very nice blanket check to a lot of mons, and hopefully I'll be able to bring Giotto to at least a couple of games. I think it's going to be like Venomoth last season, where I don't bring it to a ton of games, but when I do, it puts in the work. That's just the kind of feeling I have about Giotto. And the last one we have to round out the team is going to be my Mega, and that is Mega Tyranitar. Mega Tyranitar is this is probably the mon I'm most excited to use, which sounds crazy because I got Magearna, Kyurem Black, Reuniclus, and Tauntae, which I'm very stoked to use. But Tyranitar, man, this boy is just ridiculous. This thing is absurd. Like 164 base attack. It's got essentially the same attack stat as Gallade. I'm pretty sure Gallade's like 165, but it's got a bulk. It's got the bulk of Cresselia. It's got better bulk than Cresselia, way better bulk than Cresselia actually. I don't know actually if its defenses are like equal to that of Cresselia's because it's got a lower base HP. But anyway, it's this thing is absurd. It's going to be a lot of fun to use. This thing cannot die. Unless you're hitting it with a fighting type attack, and even then, it has to be like stab and really strong to actually OHKO it if it's like a defensive set. Sand Sand's pretty nice. Sand in conjunction with my mons on my team that don't care about sand or that appreciate the sand chip is kind of nice synergy in that regard. and fighting types are checked by Gligar, Quillfish, Reuniclus, Torn. So plenty of mons on my team as Urimel, Whimsicott. I got plenty of fighting resist, plenty of mons that can synergize nicely with Tyranitar. Whimsicott again providing that Z Memento support for Dragon Dance variants of Tyranitar. Gonna be a ton of fun to use. I think this thing is very slept on. It's a mon that I've seen a few people use. Matta used it really well in the MPL, Season 8 MPL, and I think Cheese may have used it the season before him. I think something like that, but it's not a mon you see get drafted too often, but it was kind of picking up popularity for a while there. I think it's sort of fallen off again, but look, I'm pretty stoked to use it. It's Tyranitar is a mon, like regular Tyranitar is something I've been meaning to try for a while. It's something that I've had a lot of people suggest I use. They want to see me use it, but first I figured I'd use Tyranitar Mega, because this thing it's actually cheaper than regular Tyranitar, which is kind of crazy, but I suppose the utility of an item is pretty important. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to using Tyranitar, and because it was my Mega, I could wait until last everyone to pick their Megas. It was all safe, and I was able to scoop up this very cheap, I think Mega Tyranitar was 11 points, which is crazy, considering how some of the other Megas are priced, and what this offers my team. So, very excited to use this. That's going to be my team for ITL Season 8. I'm going to pause it here and give you guys my thoughts. Just quickly, I'm not going to go super in depth, but I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on the rest of the teams and the new coaches that were added. If you guys don't want to be spoiled about the other drafts, I recommend you stop watching the video now, because I am going to be, showing you the other teams. I don't know how many other coaches are going to be uploading their draft recaps, but in case you are interested in watching theirs fresh, definitely switch off. But without further ado, I'm going to jump into my kind of analysis. Alright guys, so we're here quickly with a bit of an overview of the league, my kind of thoughts on the teams that were drafted, and I'm going to go over the new coaches that were added. So firstly, in the Kanto Conference, the new additions to the league this season are Miran Varan, an up-and-coming tour player. He plays in a few lesser-known leagues as far as I'm aware, but he's definitely someone I've seen make a name for himself in the tour scene lately, and it's going to be really cool to see him in the ITL, see how he stacks up against some of the coaches in this league. Definitely one of the favourites for playoffs in my opinion, just based on his consistency in tours recently. Then we have Sceptile MC, who was a GBA mainstay for a long time. He left the game and now he's come back, so it's going to be pretty fun to see George take on the ITL coaches and see how he adapts to the new the Gen 7 format. As for teams in this division, I think Sebi's team is pretty interesting. Seb's first few picks in Celesteela, Clef, Hydreigon, really solid. I think the three of those synergize amazingly together. And Celesteela with Hydreigon, I've used them before. Incredible pairing. Clefable, probably the best fairy in the format in my opinion. Megazam, a Mega that I've used recently and really loved. I think Sebi's going to really enjoy this team. He's got, like, it is a bit top heavy, but the mons that are at the top can really pull the weight. And they're the kind of mons that will be coming to most games, if not every game in the season in my opinion. Tangrowth, very reliable grass type. He's got all the hazards apart from Sticky Web, and he's got an elite speed tier in Zam. I guess his speed tiers are a bit lacking outside of Zam. That's probably the one kind of disadvantage I'd say of his team, but apart from that, his team is very powerful in my opinion, and he's got a really nice defensive synergy. Gastrodon, Tangrowth are going to be very difficult to break. Gastrodon, Tangrowth, Celesteela, and Clef, dude, that is going to be tough for a lot of teams to break. I see Sebi's kind of bulky approach to games really kind of coming through for him there. We got Helmi's team here. Pretty interesting squad. Jirachi, Lando T, Megavino, very solid again from a defensive standpoint. They cover each other perfectly actually, so very nice. Keldeo Como, very offensive. Zoroark, Alola Marowak, he's got a lot of offensive picks. He's got young Pikachu down here, Archeops, and you see he's elected Jirachi and Zoroark to be his Z users. So pretty unorthodox team, quite strange at face value, but I feel like Helmi's the kind of guy who will make this work. He's a pretty creative builder. He always is packing some heat, so I think we're going to see some pretty fire Como sets, maybe some offensive Venus, and some pretty interesting Jirachis. I'm keen to see if he uses Jirachi creatively. Then we've got Moran's team. Zygarde, Bulu, very solid pairing. Rotom Wash pairs amazingly with Scizor. Really nice Volturn core. I think this team is going to be pretty solid. I think it's going to, I think he's kind of a bit unsure about how it's going to function, but honestly, I feel like he's the kind of player to make it work. Hawlucha with Bulu, really, really nice. I think he's going to use that well. Lycanroc Dusk is one that I've used recently. I do enjoy it. Defensively, it's not the strongest team, but he does have a ton of offensive threats, and I think it will suit his style. We'll see how he goes, but I feel like he's going to do well this season. Then we got Tyler with the Mega Latios Aurora squad. Pretty interesting. The fact that he got Mega Latios round 1, I think, is a really good overall pick. Very, very strong mon. And you can see the way Tyler's constructed his Z-move uses. He's really kind of thought about it strategically. Z-Talon is really nice. Z-Venomoth is really nice. Z-Mag is really nice. I think all of them are really solid. Crocodile, very, very good ground. I think he's got a solid defensive core, and I see Tyler being middle of the pack, if not a contender for playoffs. I think he's improved lately, so it's going to be fun to see him perform well this season. Then we get to Nova. Nova's team, pretty interesting. He drafted Ashgren plus Stall until he made some transactions. So I think he had what did he have? He's still got Triple Water, he's still got Gren, Tapu Fini, and Toxapex, which is pretty interesting. But I think he had some Fatamons, like he had like Magnezone and Amoonguss, I think, something like that. So he had a far fatter team, but now he's got Lucario and Raikou, which adds some nice offensive pressure to his team, as well as a pretty nice speed tier. He was very slow without Raikou, so that definitely benefits his team. I think one kind of disadvantage to Nova's team is that it looks relatively one-dimensional. Like some mons can do one thing really well, but they kind of struggle to do other things well. Like Cresselia and Toxapex, they're not going to be the most offensive threats in a lot of games. Chansey obviously pigeonholed into a defensive role for the most part. And the fact that he's only got what is that, 9 mons as opposed to 12 or 11 or even 10 might end up biting him, but we'll see. Nova might end up making playoffs again like he did last season. We'll have to see, but it will be exciting to watch him use Ash Greninja and to see if that thing does put in work. It isn't Z, so it's not going to be like ridiculously easy for him to get Ash, but you never know. He could play it in such a way that he does end up getting Ash in a few games, but yeah, I'll be looking out for that. Then we've got George's team, very offensive. His first few picks are very nice in my opinion, very offensive. Kart round 2, interesting, but I respect it as well because Kartana is really sought after, and Z Katana, which is one of his Z-move mons, is so much fun to use. I think George is going to enjoy this team. It's got a lot of Gen 6 mainstays like Mew, Heatran, Togekiss, Terrakion. Mega Blastoise is a pretty solid mon on this team. I think it's a really nice Mega for this team actually because it provides him spin. So Togekiss isn't pigeonholed into a defog role, nor is Flygon, and he will be able to get up his rocks without fearing the need to defog them. He doesn't have a ton of hazard support though, that's the only thing I'd kind of say about his draft. Outside of, he's got pretty solid speed tiers to be honest. He's got a solid ground in Mudsdale. His grass type is Katana, which could bite him. Versus Zygarde, this team is really going to be forced into like defensive Mew or like really defensive Mudsdale, I guess. But yeah, we'll have to see about that. But yeah, overall pretty solid. Would appreciate spikes a lot, but he doesn't have those at the moment, I don't think. Unless I'm missing. No, I don't think he's got spikes, so we'll have to see how he goes. I think George is going to do pretty well. In terms of picking a winner of each division, it's pretty tough. I want to say, based on consistency, Sebi always makes playoffs. I don't think he's ever missed playoffs. And with this team, with this like ridiculously solid defensive core, Selly, Gastro, Tang, like Clef, I think this is going to be a very hard team to break. And then he's got Zam combined with like Hydreigon, Z Moltres for offensive power. I like this is probably a playoff team in my opinion. Helmy, I think he's going to do well. I don't know. I think betting against Moran in his like recent form is pretty unwise. I think Moran can really pull it out if he preps hard, especially with the threats that he does have on his team. So in my opinion, it's a toss-up between Sebi and Moran, but Helmy could really surprise me and take that first place if he tries hard enough. In this division, this is tough. This is honestly tough. A lot of people would say George just based on his past, but I don't know if he's been out of the game too long I don't know like what sort of form he's in. Tyler's been on the up. and he's got a pretty solid, pretty balanced team in my opinion. Probably one of the most balanced squads out. Nova, a bit of a wild card. Nova's either going to do really well or he's going to do really bad with this team. It depends how Nova can use these like fat mons, whether fat mons are his style, because not everyone can use fat. Some people really do suck with using fat. It's just the truth. But you know, Nova might really flourish with a bulkier team. We'll have to see. He moved towards a more bulky approach last season. He kind of made some free agents that made his team a lot more bulky, a lot less offensive. So maybe he is more comfortable with that now. We'll have to wait and see. But honestly, if I were to pick someone, like these guys all trying their hardest and like based on recent form, I'd probably say Tyler. I'd probably say Phantom Base, just because Mega Latios combined with the defensive core that he does have and the offensive threats, the way he's structured his Z-move picks, I think he's a real sort of dark horse in playoffs overall, and I think he can probably take his conference. So we're going to move down into the Giotto conference and cover my division and then the silver division. So I'm not going to go over my team. I've already gone over that. I'm not going to talk about who's going to make playoffs, but in my division, the Venice Shamans are owned by my boy Carson, and he has a really powerful team. So Tapu Koko, Lando, both incredible offensive threats. He's got a pretty interesting team. He's got like Koko, Lando, Fat Snorlax, Fat Buzzwole, like powerful Buzzwole, Empo Goth, and then Snow, I should say. He's got Rotom Frost, Mega Obama Snow, Alolan Sandslash. Yeah, so very interesting team, very offensive. But with a solid defensive backbone as well. He's got Lax, Goth, which I think is going to be a real nuisance for a lot of teams, just switching in and trapping the fightings that are pretty much the only thing that can threaten a boosted Lax. So yeah, I think Carson's gonna rip out some heat, and he's gonna do really well this season. When he has time for mons, he can really pull out some upsets. So I am looking forward to facing him, and I think he's gonna do well. And then we have the Rocky Mountain Marowaks. These guys are coached by Alpha. And Alpha, he's always down on himself, but like this guy's solid. He always makes really nice late season pushes. I always say this, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him do well this season. He's got Garchomp, Megalop, which are very, very nice 2 first picks. He's got really nice support for Lop in T-Spikes Queen. Let's see, he lacks Spikes. Yeah, he lacks Spikes, but outside of Spikes, he does have Rocks and T-Spikes, which the team does like. He's got some powerful breakers like Primarina and Life Orb Queen and Garchomp, but apart from that, he doesn't have a ton of power, but he's got a lot of utility, and he's got Uxie for Memento support, so it should be a pretty interesting one. Z Garchomp is nothing to fuck with. That thing always claims a kill pretty much, so I think Alpha's going to do pretty well this season. Then we have my man Aki. Aki usually drafts bulky offense, so this is why this team is so kind of out of the ordinary for him. He drafted Veil offense with Mandibuzz, and this team is going to be a real nightmare to prep for, in my opinion. Naganadel, even with no Z move, is absurd. It's another one of the mons we allowed this season, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see how Aki uses this thing. He's got Mega Morwa, which is the best breaker in the format outside of Mega Medi, and Manaphy just thrives in behind the Aura Veil that Ninetales provides. Then he's got Superior, which is a really fun grass. I used it last season and I really enjoyed it. Defensively, Pert plus Rotom Heat and Mandibuzz and Magearna, really nice defensive core. And then he's got the Bear Tick down the bottom to function as a Hail Sweeper in conjunction with his Alolan Ninetales. So this is the only season of the ITL where you're going to see 2 teams with Slush Rust Sweepers, pretty fire. And Aki does have the Z Bear Tick, so I'm sure he'll be doing a draft recap, so go and check out his draft recap first, obviously, hopefully before you watch this, to see his real breakdown of his team, because I'm sure he's going to go into depth on all his picks. But I feel like Aki, I'm not going to bet against Aki making playoffs, getting #1 seed. This guy's a beast, and his team is absurd, so I would not be surprised if he gets to #1 in his division. But before I say that, we got to go over Eric's team. Lele, Kang, Infernape, really cool team. Namaswine, he's got some incredibly powerful breakers. And then he's got cleaners in Swellow, in like Scarf Ape. Kricketune, bit of a meme pick. Defensively, Jellicent plus Skarm plus Mamo, I guess, is like I guess Serena. He's kind of weak to electrics, to be honest. Like, he doesn't like electrics. Mamo is not a very good electric switching because it just gets like 2 KO by like, Life Orb, Hidden Power Ice, or Hidden Power Water. Not Hidden Power Ice, Hidden Power Water. But I see Eric doing pretty well. It depends, again, how much time he puts in, but he has drafted Lele, and he has drafted the best Lele check in the game in Muck, so that is pretty nice. I appreciate that synergy in those picks, but it's going to be interesting to see. Honestly, I'm not too sure how Eric's going to go. He has the tools for it, but it's just going to depend on how he plays it, how he builds. But yeah, Eric's always like he's always solid. He never has like a shit season. He always pulls out wins, so I'm sure he'll do pretty well. He actually won the other MPL a couple of seasons ago, or like last season, so he definitely knows what he's doing, and like the man can pull out a win versus anyone really. So then we have lastly Sky, my man Sky, pretty solid team. Mega Gallade. Mega Gallade fits onto most teams, and when you couple it with offensive mons like Zapdos, Nihilego, Weavile, I think Weavile is one of the best partners for Gallade, and he got that. So he got that really late in the draft too. Pretty crazy how Weavile lasted that late. But he's got really nice support for his team in T-Spikes and Stealth Rocks from Nihilego. He's got a few solid Stealth Rockets, Blissey, Metagross, and Donphan. I don't think he has Spikes. Yeah, he doesn't have Spikes again, but you don't need Spikes necessarily to perform well with Gallade. It does appreciate T-Spikes and obviously Rock support. Then he's got some pretty interesting lower tier picks like Rapidash and Simisage. Wouldn't be surprised to see Sky bring them to a couple of games. Haxorus with Webs I think is going to be really threatening. Webs and Slurpuff for 7 points with Webs is a pretty nice bargain in my opinion. And I think Webs with Gallade, Weavile, Metagross, Nihilego, and Haxorus are really just going to be hard for a lot of teams to deal with. Even like offensive Donphan with Webs up could be a real nuisance to take on. But yeah, those are kind of my thoughts. I think Ahi's going to take this division just based on his consistency as a player and his absurd team. And yeah, that's going to be it. I hope you guys enjoyed my rundown of the team. Feel free to let me know your thoughts on who you think is going to make playoffs, I guess, in this season, or your kind of predictions for the season. If you disagree with what I said, let me know in the comments. And obviously, let me know what you guys thought of my team. I went over that earlier in the video, and it's always good to hear what you guys think. The team may change partway through the season. I may make some free agents after I recognize like areas that it could be improved on. But at this stage, I am pretty happy with it. So that's going to be it from me. Hope you guys did enjoy, and I'll catch you guys next time.